when they should have been. 3/4. Gerard, with teachers' salaries so poor here, how do you manage to look after your family?
Salary we are getting is quite impossible. We cannot sustain our children. So we have to go and look for alternative jobs, like in factories, selling fish, tomatoes, to mention but a few.
Do you believe that donors got their priority wrong by building more schools here?
Instead of spending a lot of money building schools, where even in our school here you find that most of the classrooms are vacant, it would be better for them to use this money to put on the teacher's salary so that we can improve on the culture of education in Uganda.
This left me wondering if things would be any better in the health system. I met with Andrew Mwenda, one of a growing number of Africans who question how aid is working. Like the World Bank before us, we turned up at this clinic by chance and unannounced. This clinic was designed to serve 30,000 people, but only one of its buildings was in use. The other 4 lay abandoned. There was no medication for these patients, one of whom had malaria and the other bronchitis. Andrew, this is unbelievable. What's going on here?
Donors' priorities are completely wrong. They have poured much more money into celebrity diseases like AIDS and forgotten that for most Ugandans, they're suffering from measles, from malaria, from tuberculosis, from cough and from flu, and they do not have drugs for those. The driving force behind this wastage is that donors do not understand that the challenge facing poor countries in their healthcare system is just social organization to ensure an efficient and effective healthcare delivery system. They think that what is missing is money. So they keep pouring money into dysfunctional institutions, and the results, as you can see, there are only 2 nurses in this hospital. There are no beds, there are no blankets, there are no mattresses, there are no drugs that are essential for the health of the citizen. For the ordinary Ugandan, it means that so much money that comes from the international donor community lanes the pockets of civil servants, high-end health workers, and politicians, of course, while the ordinary citizen goes without drugs, in spite of the fact that the international community has been extremely generous in helping us in our health sector.
Of course, development efforts have made a real difference in Africa. Here in Kampala, you can see how the Ugandan economy has grown steadily for most of the last 20 years. But in neighborhoods like this, the vast majority of people are still living below the poverty line. For the poor, development seems like somebody else's business. This hospital was built by the British and opened by the Duchess of Kent in 1962. Today, it's the only national referral hospital here in Kampala, serving a population of 1.7 million people. Since then, Western governments have pumped in $1.75 billion into Uganda's health sector. 200 million of that comes directly from British taxpayers. But we were told this hospital operates on only half the money it needs to work properly, and its chairman recently resigned as a result. I've just spoken to a senior staff member here who told me that here in the emergency department, they're struggling for the most basic equipment, even things like protective gloves or paracetamol. They don't have it, things that people in the West would normally have in their homes. This is unbelievable. I wonder what's awaiting me behind this door. I'm greeted by this shocking image of a wounded man lying on the ground with no one attending to him. Further down the corridor, more people lie on the floor. The same floor where used needles have been discarded. There's blood all over the place. But remember, this isn't a war zone. This guy is in shock. And that's why he keeps doing this. He's in shock. I kept telling the staff this man needed attention, but they ignored me. Too overworked, underpaid, and demoralized. He lay there bleeding for half an hour in the end. With the hospital understaffed, critical patients rely on relatives to pay for special treatment. I am here in the labor ward where up to 80 babies are born every night and about 20 cesarean operations are carried out by one surgeon in one operating theater. Looking around, you can see the women lying down with their babies all over the corridor. It's obvious that Western aid isn't getting through to these mothers and the newly born babies who so desperately need the help. These newborn babies and their mothers lie on the filthy floor, surrounded by blood. I can't help wondering, when was the last time anyone representing foreign aid donors came here? In the next room, more mothers and babies lie under the beds, by the beds, anywhere there is space, stuffed like sardines. For these women, there are no choices. Without money, you take whatever is given to you. Over 50% of the patients in this hospital are HIV positive, and many of them can be found in this infectious diseases ward. In recent years, the West has been pushing in the fight against HIV here. Let's see if that level of support is reflected in Mulago. No wonder most Africans think entering a ward like this one means you're condemned to die. After what I've seen here tonight, I have no doubt that Western aid isn't getting through. At times, I felt really shocked and disappointed by the attitude of some of the staff who are completely demoralized because of the working conditions here. But at the same time, I felt really uplifted by the heroics of the nurses in the maternity ward who are working round the clock in appalling conditions, trying to make mothers and babies feel comfortable. If the West is really serious about making a real difference here in Africa, they have to find a way to make sure that aid reaches the people it's intended for. This year alone, the international community has given Uganda's healthcare sector over $500 million. Yet, as we saw in Mulago Hospital, not nearly enough is actually being spent on healthcare. I'm standing here in the Ministry of Health car park, surrounded on all sides by four-wheel drive vehicles. In total, the ministry has bought 1,800 4x4s for its staff, but only 4 ambulances for Mulago Hospital. Aid is financing the lifestyle of those who work in it, rather than the very people it's supposed to help. British aid has come in for criticism as well as praise from MPs and auditors. Real benefits for the poor, but problems in assessing which schemes work, and a quarter fall prey to fraud.
The poorest countries in the world have a right to expect the most powerful and richest to help them have the kind of societies and decent quality of life that we take for granted. But there is also responsibility, and that responsibility is to make sure aid is spent to maximum effect, to ensure that corruption is rooted out at every turn. So it's stages in a journey. A lot of progress, a lot of remarkable advances, but still a long, long way to go in Uganda and many other similar countries.
Western governments have little choice but to rely on local administrators to deliver their aid. But are they up to the job? In Sierra Leone, the World Health Organization and UNICEF provide free drugs and mosquito nets for children. So why can I buy these things in a private pharmacy? Not for resale. Then look at this, UNICEF, for gift free.
now they're down there actually.
How you feel, madam? Well, they're not being announced, and then they announce on the radio say not for sale them.
Not for sale, yeah.
The man in know.
Not true, yeah. This
So let we not do harm. He is clearly in the know that these are not meant to be sold. So it's such a shame that somebody who